What's the most fucked up shit you've walked into? My mother cheating on her boyfriend with her ex-husband. Later in life I found out my mother is a serial cheater. Even more odd is that she claims to have a 6. I walked in to re-evaluate a patient and the patient was getting a blowjob from girlfriend in the ER. Clearly there is no emergency. You, sir, are discharged. Heard a bang in my kitchen and walked in to find that my roommate slipped and cracked his head open. So much ducking blood. He was out cold. He's fine though. A few staples and he was just as dumb as before, so no biggie. Not me, but my brother told me this. My brother is blind and so is his friend. Let's call him Kenny. Kenny lived with his dad until one day when his dad decided to hang himself in the garage. Kenny found him by bumping into him when trying to find him when he got home from work. Was the most ducked up thing I ever heard. Worked downtown and was on my lunch break. Went to the bathroom before heading back to the office. Walked in on a girl taking a rit in the sink. Before I had arrived she must have it and smeared it all over the mirror. She kind of hissed at me when I walked in. I got the hell out of there and told security. Edit. Thanks for the silver. I feel like Cersei Lannister when she crowned herself queen. When I was in college. In Texas. I lived in an apartment style dorm. Had 2 bedrooms on each side that shared a bathroom and a shared living room and kitchen. Me and a friend were walking back from our class that got cancelled and we walked in on my roommate jerking it on the couch in the living room to some old school VHS porno on the TV. It gets better. He had his cowboy hat on, cowboy boots on and had his leg hiked up in the air and was grabbing his D from under his thigh. Like reaching back to front and jerking it that way. Also, he was probably close to 300 pounds. Never sat on that couch again and changed rooms at the end of the semester. Edit. For those asking. He paused and me and my friend just turned around and walked out. No clue what he did after we left. Second edit. Thank you kind stranger for my first gold. I was delivering a parcel to a business in a remote location. Walked in and found a naked chick throwing cucumbers at an elderly gentleman's spread ass cheeks. She saw me and told me to wait a second while she threw 2 or 3 more. It appeared as though she was trying to javelin them into his crinkly old brown eye. Then she came over, signed and went and started collecting the cucumbers. The old guy shouted thanks. There must have been 30 cucumbers on the floor. Later that day I delivered a parcel to a guy that was in the middle of being arrested. The cops let him sign though and he told me it was a dildo for the cop's wife and the cop replies that if he didn't shut his mouth he'd shove the box up his ass. It was a great day and I still think fondly of that old man and his baggy-eared piece. Edit. Thanks for the golds, silvers and coins kind strangers. A guy with a beer bong in his ass and someone pouring Jack and Coke in it. An old friend of mine giving his now ex-girlfriend a knife and proceeding to tell her she just needs to do everyone the favor and kill herself. Walked in on a guy using a Hitachi magic wand on a girl who was orgasming so hard she had it herself. Dude was yelling muahaha, sounding like the mad scientist on Tojam and Earl 1. During a night of drinking and partying, I laid my friend down in this room after he passed out outside. When it was to leave, I went back to the room to get him only to be greeted by a couple in full doggy style mode next to him as he slept. And I'm talking pounding it. Once walked in on a co-worker giving a manager a blowjob. She was furiously going at it too. He got startled. She stopped. But the ducked up thing was she came up to me later and said that could be you and winked. It was ducked up because all 3 of us were married to other people. I noped out. Got a message from a friend of my then girlfriend. Told me I needed to go to my girlfriend's house because she was feeling rather horny. Was odd that her friend sent me this message. But I thought I was jetting 6 so I hauled ass over there. She was horny alright. Horny for the 2 dudes but roasting her. When I was young I was at my grandparents' ranch. My grandmom told me to go out and help my granddad. He was in the barn with a cow birth and had been there a while. I walked out to the completely quiet barn to see him looking down in either disgust or sadness. I walked around to see the most disgusting thing. The baby was already dead inside the mom and had ruptured during the birthing process. This caused massive shock and prolapse of the cow. I saw a low of blood. A smell I will never forget. and the decaying face of a baby cow never born. Got home from work to find a gangbang happening on my living room floor. I walked in on my sons all pissing into the toilet at once while my daughter waited her turn. They were worried about going in on their own because they saw a movie about murderers hiding in bathrooms and killing people. When I was about 11 or 12, I went outside to go play and quickly found a trail of dead and puppies that my pregnant Rottweiler had left in the yard. I vividly remember that one was missing its head. I followed 3 or 4 of them into the detached garage where she stayed and found her eating them. We were able to save 3. It was her first litter and she clearly did not want them, so we had take over their care. Still turns my stomach to think about. Walked into my parents' house when my teenage sister and her boyfriend were telling my parents she was pregnant. My sister was sobbing, sitting in my mom's lap, and my dad was saying, "We trusted you," to her boyfriend. It took me about a quarter of a second to figure out what was happening. I gathered up the younger kids who had been sent to another room and took them all for ice cream to get them out of the house. Took them back to my place to watch movies until I got the all clear. BTW. Sister and boyfriend are now sister and brother-in-law, and their little accident is about to graduate from high school. Edit. Because my BTW was confusing. My sister married the guy. They are still married 18 years later and their kid is a healthy, well-adjusted high school senior. In college, a female friend invited a girl from her hometown to party with us. Call her homegirl. Later that night I noticed one of our female friends, call her Liz, was in the bathroom like way too long. I figured she was puking or passed out drunk. I knocked and every time I would just hear her mumbling something. Now I was mad because it's been like 25 minutes. I can hear she is at least semi-coherent, so she needs to open the door or at least tell me what's wrong. I come back 5 minutes later and force my way in, and Liz and homegirl are going at it. But the ducked up part is there was blood everywhere from homegirl. I still don't know if it was period blood or if the girl got cut by a fingernail or something, but it was bad. I feel bad though cause one of my roommates called Liz the next morning and made her come over really early and clean the bathroom. It was like a walk of shame and she was really embarrassed. Homegirl now teaches elementary school. In the late 90s there was an after hours bar I used to go to in Philly. I bartended, so it was a good spot to grab a drink after work. It was also run by the mob. You pretty much had to know someone to be allowed in. It was a lesbian bar until midnight. Then they'd close and reopen at 2 AM. So one night I get cut from work early and decide to go over there. It's about 1 AM. The bouncer knows my uncle really well, so when I walk up he says it's no problem. I can go upstairs and get a drink even though they weren't open yet. So I walk upstairs and when I turn the corner I see the bartender behind the bar. And on the other side of the bar there's a guy chained to a chair. These 2 mob guys I knew were beating the piss out of this guy. I have no idea why. They weren't asking questions. And there was blood all over him. Bartender turns to me and asks if I want a drink. I was like, nah. You know what? It'll come back after you guys open up. And I turned right around and walked back downstairs Grandpa Simpson style. When I left I told the bouncer he might not want to let people in early tonight. And I rolled. Let's go literal on this one. I once woke up in the middle of the night to get some water. I have the only upstairs bedroom and had to go out to the garage where the case of bottled water was. Rural area. Can't drink the tap water here. I opened the door and turned the hallway light on. Oh. Dear Jesus. There were trails of black, bloody liquid everywhere. Up the stairs. All over the upstairs loft. All over the wood floor in the living room. Through the kitchen. In some places. It looked like projectile it had hit the wall square on. I woke my mom and we rushed our poor doggo to the vet. They found he'd consumed an entire, long dead animal. Likely a squirrel given the size of the bones found. He ate it. Skeleton and all. They gave us some heavy duty meds to administer for about a month. And they ended up having to do something to, well, his eye pipe. Because it was torn up from eating out bones. The cleanup took about 16 hours over 2 days. Doggo is 9 now. Doing just fine. And hasn't eaten another corpse since. I hope. Edit. Thank you, Reddit friend, for turning it into gold. Walked into a friend's garage to his oblivious 13-year-old sister blowing their dog. I walked into my friend's house just as his teenage sister told her family she was pregnant. Grandpa Simpson had hang a walk away gif. My younger sister giving my friend a blowjob in the hay barn when we were all around 14-15 years old. Half the guys in my class were comparing the color of their nipples and pondering over the biological aspects that lead to this variation. I had a meeting with one of my professors at the university. I walked in on her screaming in agony after dropping hot tea on her crotch, screaming "Oh God." Went to a meetup group where the organizer was talking about how he had attempted suicide by slitting his wrists and he had been fascinated by seeing the muscles and tendons, so he took a video of them. He went on to say that he had to delete the video because he was scared it would prevent him from getting custody of his kids. My best ever WTF did I just walk into story, and it wasn't even me who walked in on it. Helping a friend's younger brother move to a new flat. We loaded my van several times. Starting with the big stuff. I found 4 empty crisps boxes with the 6 inches hole punched out. And the bottom of the box is missing. I asked if these were for the rubbish pile. Young guy says no. We have to keep them. And he got very protective of them. So we asked him why. And why so precious. His answer defies belief. Those are for when we all watch a porno. We put a box over our head. We can all have a wank. But not see each other doing it. We were truly speechless for a while. Then my mate asks his brother, what happens if auntie comes along with one of her cakes? And finds this going on? Oh, that happened once. We don't know who came in with the cake. But it was on the worktop when we finished. Edit, British, crisps box, image with a cat taking the place of the boy. Edit, thanks for all the upvotes and gold, first time I've ever had that. Colon. I was unwittingly and unknowingly invited to and walked in on a furry orgy at age 16. So, that. Walked into my room where my roommate was naked in my bed for no reason. We're both straight males. I was working on a school project with 2 other classmates at one of their houses. I was halfway home and realized I forgot my coat. New England. Could be 20 in the morning, 65 in the afternoon. I go back up to his room. They were no longer working on the project. I saw gay. Lots of gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. In Spain with my friend and his brother. Wasn't aware his brother was gay until I walked in on him being destroyed by a huge Maury bloke. There were tears and blood and it everywhere. To answer everyone's questions. This happened many years ago and it definitely wasn't assault. He was consenting. I think it got a bit messy and the guy was rather large, hence the tears and blood. A couple of my co-workers pulled back into the station from a suicide call and my partner's looking into the back window as I walk out into the garage bay. I figured there was just a bloody mess in the back. I'm eating Cheez-Its as we both walk around to the back of the ambulance. He opens the doors and now I'm staring at a dead body with essentially nothing left of his face. Suddenly the Cheez-Its didn't taste quite as good. Stopped by an apartment complex to check it out years ago. They had a community area with seats and tables set up in their main office where people can sit and talk. They also had a computer in the corner that could be used by anyone who lived there. At the computer sat a man who was probably in his 70s and on the screen was an image of a V that he zoomed in so it filled the screen. He slowly looked back at me and made eye contact with me. He then slowly turned back and stared at the V some more. I backed out of the doorway and drove to the next rental office. My youngest brother is into cosplay. No biggie. He was actually pretty good at making costumes. Except this one time he made this one costume that he basically lived in makeup and all. The character was a villain from some obscure video game. He would wear it every day. And if he wasn't fully done up he'd wear the white bodysuit and the headpiece instead. It was pretty terrifying. Well, one night I pulled into the driveway. We lived at the end of a wooded lot, and there he was standing. In full costume. His dirty ass costume that he never washed. At the end of the driveway. In the darkness. I couldn't tell if he was jacking it. Or whatever. But I can only assume he was. It felt like some Ed guy in it. Also. He came to Easter dinner in this costume one time. I'm sure it was some kind of sexual gratification for him. Walked into my in-laws house and saw my father-in-law jerking it in his lazy boy. He tried to sit up and hide it under a blanket but it was too late. Friend and I went out to get pizza and took his little sister too. Gone maybe 20 minutes. Got back and his little sister runs inside before us. He walks after her and I follow. As I get in I see both of them frozen in place staring at something. As I round the corner I see their dad strangling their mom. Both crumpled on the stairs leading up. It was eerily ducking quiet, like she was sitting there dying without a sound. I was in a state of shock but I wasn't paralyzed by it so I walked over and calmly grabbed his wrists and pulled his hands from her neck. Still no sounds at all. Super quiet. She started gasping then and the sound snapped everyone out of it. That's when all hell broke loose with everyone screaming and freaking out. My own mom asked why I didn't beat the hell out of him and I had to explain to her that I was in a sort of calm daze. I was watching someone trying to kill someone else and I just couldn't process it. As an adult now I would have absolutely beat him to a greasy pulp but I was like 16 then. She survived with a badly bruised neck and thankfully did everything right. Restraining order. Divorce. Moved away.